on the show?
Yes, we can. And a good Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Nick Hines, the Sarge, reporting for duty. Well, it might be nightfall and the rain is rolling in, but from sunny Florida, reporting for duty this evening. And, of course, I want to welcome in my good friend and our West Coast racing manager, Joe Moran. And we spent a fair amount of time together here these past few days. You can see our backdrop is identical, but we're in different rooms here in Ocala, Florida.
Nick, it's a pleasure to be on. We're only about 2 rooms apart, but no, I'm glad we were able to get this show in, and we got a pretty good lineup coming ahead today. We get to tune in on a few 2-year-olds, touch on the Mandela Barn. That's been a popular one for us, but as we look at Tizamagician getting ready for the Tokyo City Cup on Sunday, and popular demand.
No, I think it's fantastic, and definitely excited for the opportunity. For Tizamagician, to get that coveted, graded stakes victory. And if many recall, he did compete back on September 27th in the Tokyo City at Santa Anita. So it's interesting that this race came back in just 7 months' time, but we'll have an opportunity to dive in and delve into that graded stake at 1.5 miles this Sunday, the 3rd on the card at Santa Anita. He's dispatched dispatched at 4 to 5, Joe?
4 to 5, yep. 5-horse field. He's the morning line at 4 to 5. So we think he's got a good shot here. And Team Mandela is pretty confident, so we're excited.
Absolutely. All right. Well, welcome to the Wednesday work show. Of course, I may have not prefaced that, but we're here. And as many of you know, My Racehorse Live is kind of in recalibration mode. So that hopefully will be up and running by the first Friday or the last Friday of April, with the Oaks coming up, the Lilies for the Fillies. Kentucky Derby is just weeks away, and we're talking more about that as we draw closer to the Run for the Roses. All right, Joe, we're going to jump right into things here, and of course, a major tip of the cap to you, sir, and your Edge Racing Group. And I am proud to have been working alongside with you in concert in attaining this time back in December. And now we've got a son of not this time who's rattled off 3 straight victories. This was his big win last weekend, and he earned a career best speed figure.
Yeah, and he was a show that we touched, or he was a horse we touched on last week's show. He had a 5/8 breeze going into this work, and he was a horse that was coming into this race really sharp. He was coming off 2 wins. This was a class test per se as he went into the first level allowance race. And he had a lot of new things, a new rider, a new, trip per se as he came off the pace when we purchased him. He was a horse that wasn't a need the lead type, but in his last 2 starter allowance races, he kind of obtained the lead on his own just by the way the races went slow paces, and he was able to get the lead easily. In this race, which was on April 11th last weekend, he had to come from off the pace. He had a little bit of trouble here, as you're going to see in the video, where he had to kind of tap on the brakes under Edwin Gonzalez. And he really came rolling, as we're going to see. So super exciting for all the partners here. Anytime you win, no matter what the level is, it's exciting. But when you have a horse that's continuing on the up and up, it just, the ceiling right now is unlimited. So hopefully we can continue going up.
We touched on his workout April 6th prior to this victory. And that's why, as we cover these work shows, it's so important to kind of, give our 2 cents. Going into this race, this workout that it had prior to was a bit more workmanlike. And as we've talked about in the past, he's a horse that generally works in a team drill per se, but the time was faster. Do you think the stress of that workout, essentially kind of getting him focused, is what was able to enable this horse to get to the next level? Because when you look from a speed figure standpoint, far and away, his best buyer speed figure, his best thoroughgraph, and his best ragazine, and remind those that are watching the show what those numbers were. And just to give some clarification, the closer to zero, the faster you run. So if Joe, you can give us some idea on what those previous numbers were prior to coming into this race.
Yeah, so for example, when you look at the thoroughgraph, he was running 12 1/4. He actually paired 3 12 1/4 in 3 races. His 3 races at Gulfstream when we bought into him, his first 3 races for us, he paired 12 1/4 for us each of those times. In this race, he ran a 7.5, so it was a major improvement on that end. On the Ragazon end of things, he was running in the 19, 17 3/4, and 17 1/4 in those 3 races. He jumped all the way to a 12.5 on the rags, which was a huge jump again. And when you went back to touch on the work, I think the biggest thing is we knew he was going to have to put up a bigger effort going against tougher competition. And in Kelly Breen's mind, he knew he was going to have to get the most out of him in this race as he got that class set. So I think that work, he designed it where he went nice and slow early, like we talked about on that show. And he was asked, as you saw in the video, he had to be asked to finish, but he responded willingly. And I think ultimately he just wanted to have him ready for that late punch. He showed in that race prior where he finished up in 22 2 for the final quarter in that starter allowance race where he had to lead his own way. But ultimately he knew that the race was going to be a little tougher and he wanted him to be on edge and sharp, and he sure was.
Well, and again, major props to Kelly Breen for what he's done. I mean, you consider the fact that, this horse had the trouble trip back on January 21st, a bit of an awkward start, came back February 20th, was able to establish the lead on his own. Great ride from Paco Lopez, then comes back a month later on March 20th, kind of a similar race in which he's able to idle and then spurred home. The irony of this situation, just as you and I discussed going in, the frustration is the fact that Paco Lopez was riding for Stone Street and Christophe Clement. Well, wouldn't you know, who finished second? Ironically, we ended up as the favorite in this case, which when he was loading into the starting gate, and I know it's not only yours, and I'm sure those that are watching, and by the way, big shout out to Judy Newman out there and those that have tuned in. But when a horse enters the starting gate at 5-1 and 6 jumps out of the gate, they're favored at 2-1. I mean, come on, it's ridiculous.
I can't disagree. Obviously, I was getting a little excited and also a little worried when I saw 5-1. I said, we knew it was a tough race when we looked at the PPs. We said this is going to be the toughest races of his career. And going into the gate, I was hoping he was going to get a little support from a buyer standpoint. He came into the race with the highest, most recent buyer speed figure. And when the gate opened and he ended up going off at 2-1, I said, okay, well, someone really liked him, and they were sure spot on. It wasn't me, I'll promise that.
No, absolutely. I don't think I have enough money in my account to shake up the board. So remind us of what the buyer speed figure was. So I know many folks are familiar with the buyer.
Yeah, so the buyer speed figure was 84,
Right.
and he came in with 2 79s. He paired 79s, very similar. He paired 12 1/4 on the thoroughgraph. He paired 79s going into that race. Career best speed figure of 84 in that race.
All right, so quickly, what's the next step for you this time? I mean, now that he was able to step up into that, first level allowance race and, take on a pretty nice group, are we thinking stakes next time?
Yeah, well, being a straight 3-year-old, there is no twice other than allowance race for straight 3-year-olds. So the next logical step would be a stake of some sort. Where that's going to be, that's going to be the $1 million question, and the tough question. Kind of makes it fun here. He's obviously very successful and loves that Gulfstream Park turf course, but obviously with having such an increased performance and on those numbers, he's going to need adequate time to recover from that race. So there's a few races up north, whether it's New Jersey, New York, so we'll have a few options to pick from.
All right, fantastic. Well, congratulations to the partners out there. Kathy Ripa-Beck messaging in as well. And I, for one, enjoy the Zoom conferences that we've had with Edge just to kind of bounce ideas off of one another and essentially kind of talk about the investment level. And, it's crucial. I mean, there are questions that come up on billing, management per se, but it is a little interesting how the dynamic changes because, we had considered potentially running the horse up at Aqueduct. This race came up and Kelly said, hey, let's enter. And we deferred to the trainer in this case, and it paid dividends. So onward and upward for yes this time, and a big salute again going out to Edge Racing. If you've got questions, it's right there at the bottom of the screen. Hannah, thank you, Hannah, behind the scenes, of course, doing a wonderful production job here. All right, well, that's the latest on the win end of things. And, of course, we hope that it's a contagious thing here in the world of Edge and my racehorse, the Tizamagician, stepping into the great Tokyo City come Sunday. But let's kind of take a step back, if we will, into the proverbial time machine. And of course, we're going to take a look here at the youngsters. And I want to thank those that were able to provide some video coverage of the babies that are training at the farm. So, Joe, as we watch the workouts, and I'm under the impression this is a King's Equine here in Ocala. Is that correct?
Correct. This was, I believe, just not this past Tuesday, but the Tuesday before that, the 6th, their most recent workout. We had In a Latte Trouble. I always get yelled at for saying that name wrong. She's on the outside, and Dolce Notte on the inside, the filly by Bernardini. And these fillies are doing great. All the horses at King's Equine. We just had our first 2 head into Santa Anita with trainer Richard Mandela. So all the horses are progressing, are slowly going to start heading in there in these coming weeks. But taking a look at this, the intention of these works, we're not looking for speed works here, but these are stamina building drills to get these horses ready to get to that next level and get into the track. And these 2 fillies, I thought, traveled very well here. You can see they're both well in hand, traveling well. And most importantly, as we've seen these fillies develop over time, when you look at these 2 fillies work here, they're focused at the task in hand. And to me, that's one of the biggest and most important things, is that they're learning that greenness is getting out of the way, and they're really starting to learn and enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, these are, pardon the pun, but these are the baby steps that we see. And obviously these horses have essentially graduated through the breaking process, which, would take place, for example, at Silver Springs. And Raul Reyes and his team does a magnificent job there at King's Equine. So Dolce Notte by Bernardini out of the mare Midnight Sweetie, and purchased out of Keeneland September. And, of course, In a Lot of Trouble out of the mare La Hida by Into Mischief. And, I think both horses, when you look back at where and their price points, very smartly acquisitioned, I thought. And you can kind of see both individuals here with Dolce Notte along the inside, and In a Lot of Trouble. Again, both have been stamped by their sires, Bernardini and Into Mischief. If I gave you kind of a blank space and guess which one's the Into Mischief and which one is a Bernardini, I'm sure 90% of our viewing folks out there would know who it would be. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll say, the Into Mischiefs, you start to see a lot of chrome coming into them as well. And with him at the In a Latte Trouble stamps a lot of Into Mischief in there. And she's a filly. I would say both these fillies, I was impressed with it, not being able to see them for so long and then getting to see them develop and being here in the March sale and seeing them. The In a Latte Trouble, she's always been one that has been really aggressive and eager to train. And I thought Dolce Notte has really progressed well, and both of them, worked on even terms in this work. I think we got to be very happy here.
They look quite pleased. And so essentially, how far are we going here? Quarter of a mile or 3/16 of a mile? Do we have confirmation on that?
Quarter of a mile out 3/8.
Okay. And for the folks that are watching, of course, again, thank you. Just remember, this is an interactive show. If you've got questions, feel free to send it in. Hannah will hopefully post them up on the screen, and we can we can discuss. So David Anthus says, when do they start learning to switch leads? Well, I can answer that. Quite frankly, at a very, very early stage. In fact, so when you begin the breaking process, let's say it roughly takes 30 days or so to get them to the point where they're ready to actually start galloping on a track. And it may be a little less than that depending upon the horse. But quite frankly, David, they're learning probably within a week or two of starting into the galloping process because of, centripetal force, being able to keep horses on a straight path. Because obviously they don't switch leads going to a turn. What ultimately is going to happen is they're going to be on the outside fence. So they're taught that. But what's interesting is that, believe it or not, horses are actually taught leads on foot when they're youngsters as weanlings, for example, first baby steps, for example, as they walk. When these horses prep for these yearling sales, they are taught at that point in time how to walk. And I don't know about you, but I was fortunate that I had an aunt when I was young that actually taught me how to walk. But there are pressure points when you walk. We all walk with a lead, whether it be left or right. Joe, being a former athlete, may have injured an ankle, left ankle. He might put more pressure on his right to alleviate pressure on that old problem point. But so David, very, very early, and even as early as when they're weanlings, essentially. But as far as under tack, probably within a month, as far as learning how to actually switch leads and move into the turns and on the straights. Anything you want to add, Joe?
No, I you put more than I would have. So I learned something there. Even just how you talked about, when you really think about it as weanlings, when you're just learning the baby steps, how those lead changes come into play there. It's very interesting.
All right, well, let's move on to the next subject. And In a Latte Trouble and Dolce Notte both look great and maintaining good weight, perfect health, and once again a big thank you going out to Raul and his team. All right, so we've got a pair coming up here, and I'm pretty sure that I can recognize the one closest to us. But tell us about the two that are on the track in this video.
Yeah, so we're going to look at the two colts that will be heading to trainer Bob Baffert. We have La Forgia, the 2-year-old colt by Into Mischief, and he's going to be on the outside. And then on the inside, Forbidden Kingdom, the 2-year-old chestnut colt by American Pharoah. Both of these were purchased from the Fasig-Tipton sale. And, two beautiful striking horses, both of them, and both have a beautiful way of going. So we'll take a look here at the work right now.
So La Forgia by Into Mischief out of the mare Lost Empire by Empire Maker. And you've got the American Pharoah, the chestnut, out of the mare Just Louise by 5 Star Day. And it's really exciting, like as you had mentioned, the fact that we were here in March and had an opportunity to watch him train. But even since then, until this point, wow. What are your thoughts here as they come home in tandem?
Yeah, well, first of all, both these horses, as I know, and this is actually, I'll bring this question up later, but you can see both these horses can easily do a lot more than they're being allowed. These horses have loads of ability right here, and they're just coming home on their own power with big, beautiful strides. I would say there too, when you look at them side by side, La Forgia is a little bit on the bigger side, taller side, but Forbidden Kingdom, you could tell right when they turned for home, he was ready to go. He wanted to take off. Ryder had to restrain him a little bit, but both finished up very well.
Well, when you consider the sires, again, going back and looking at the price points, for example, Forbidden Kingdom was a $300,000 yearling in the sales ring. La Forgia was $450,000, and this was in the midst of Authentic. I mean, he was essentially at the tipping point, with having won the Kentucky Derby. So essentially, when we examined him, and of course, collectively the group, established a short list, he was one of those horses that really stamped himself as Authentic-like. And I can give props to Seth, of course, Seth Sempkin at Spendthrift. You try to find that mold in that match, and this horse certainly fits right into that cookie cutter vibe for Authentic. But for me and you, I know that we had a close personal attachment to Forbidden Kingdom. This horse didn't come across as the conventional American Pharoah, bay, no markings, and a little of a bulkier build. But this horse just had that cut dirt vibe to him, and what an amazing spirit both of these horses had. And one thing about Forbidden Kingdom, cool as a cucumber, La Forgia came out. It was kind of reminiscent of like a Muhammad Ali and kind of like a Joe Frazier or Larry Holmes. Forbidden Kingdom, he's one of those horses that you think what he is until come race day. I think he's going to be a fun horse to campaign. La Forgia, watch him. He's a fantastic looking individual.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, both of them. It makes you excited, right? The 2-year-olds, whenever you're watching any of them, it gets you excited. But when you see two like this, it really gets you excited to see them progress and as they start doing more. So really,
Well,
really can't wait.
and nothing against the girls, but you can see kind of the difference of where they're at right now.
Yeah.
As we fast forward, and of course, we won't be able to have the Wednesday work show next week, but perhaps the following week, once we get some more updated footage, you, the viewer, you decide as we follow these Wednesday work shows, obviously today being Friday, as we push back, you'll see the difference. And the Phillies, they will leapfrog the Colts at some point in time. But you can see just the difference in the maturity and where they stand. It won't stay that way. And that's the beauty of the young horses because they do change in a short amount of time. So I couldn't be more pleased with what we've seen with those two as well. So the Colts and the Phillies. Do we have one more group, Joe?
Yes, we have one more, and we're actually going to be headed now to Demeric, not too far away from King's Equine. And we're going to be looking at two colts, one by Not This Time on the outside, Can't Hush This, and then on the inside, Ancient Royalty, and that is the 2-year-old colt by Cantheros, and that I believe is at a Speightstown Bell. Again, two colts that seem to have some speed under them, progressing well, and this is going to be a 3/8 work here. So these horses are going 3/8 in just about 37 seconds flat by intention. Again, just like we mentioned at King's Equine, these type of works at the farm, they're not getting prepped for a sale. And I think that will be a great conversation when we get done covering this work, is kind of touching on the difference of the training methods of prepping a horse for a sale versus prepping these horses that you bought as yearlings that are getting ready to go into trainers. So I'd like to ask you a few questions on that after. But here you go. You can see them going on the lane. When you look at Ancient Royalty on the inside, going into that turn, he did want to kind of lug in a little bit, get in a little bit, got corrected. That's where the rider used that crop for a correction, and he responded right away and finished up strong. Again, two horses. I think you got to be very happy with the way they've gone, being up to 3/8 to this point and travel the way they do. Very pleased the way they look.
It's interesting, both horses, born within 2 weeks of one another. Ancient Royalty, incidentally, was born 2 weeks prior to the Not This Time and Can't Hush This. And what's intriguing is when we go back and reflect on the yearling sale, Ancient Royalty was a bit more immature. So we kind of felt as a group, and when you go back and look at the price point for Ancient Royalty, look, you're getting a Cantheros with the Fall of the Hammer at 85,000. Hey, you have something you can build upon. That's the other point of what I've been able to really appreciate about my racehorse. They don't discriminate, meaning that, hey, we don't need just to go to these sales and buy $500,000 horses. So the point being is that they come in all shapes and sizes. They're Not This Time, and I can tell you this, based on the Cantheros and Ancient Royalty, this horse has developed quite extensively because I did not see Ancient Royalty when we were here in March. And the Not This Time, I remember him vividly. By the way, did MC Hammer buy into this horse, Joe?
He did not, but I sure wish he did. It would have been perfect. Can only imagine having him in the winner's circle on a win.
Well, I mean, the name is so apropos out of the mare, all hushed by Not This Time. And, for those that were big proponents of MC Hammer, of course, he invested in the game and shared many winning memories.
Yep.
Had horses with late, great Henry Marino and, of course, Jerry Hollendorfer, Coach D. Wayne. Light is one particular horse that comes to mind. So when you watch these two in tandem, by the way, Demeric, Tristan, his father, Nick, of course, the name legendary here in Ocala, Florida. Valerie, the wife of Tristan, has done an exceptional job with offering up content as well. And you pointed out the fact that, this is a different kind of a zone because these horses aren't being prepped to be a 2-year-old in training pinhook. So there's a whole different thought process that goes into it. It's a bit more gradual and not as abrupt and, intentional, whereas it's more of, hey, let's see where they develop and see where they land. So what's interesting between the three groups, from a grading standpoint, I don't think it would be fair to grade because it's almost as if they're in 3 different phases. Would you agree?
No, I would agree completely. And ultimately, you're still not seeing these horses truly get to do everything they can too. So I also don't think it's truly worth putting on a grade. But I mean, in the end, if you had to put a check mark or an X by all their names, I'd be putting a check mark by all their names by all three sets of works.
Yeah, and I love it, and I think
Yeah.
the fact that Ancient Royalty, you saw a kind of a learning curve there. You mentioned the fact that this horse, and that's likely why they had Ancient Royalty on the inside of Can't Hush This to kind of be the mate. And the one thing I learned at a very young age with my father when growing up, regardless of whether or not he was using two saddle horses wherever he may be going, because he used to go to the rodeos in northern Nevada and to Utah. He would always ship two horses together. He said, never ship one horse alone, always go in tandem. And we've come to find that, these team drills can do wonders. These horses can learn from one another. And you'll notice that trainers will alternate, put one on the inside, outside, and allow another horse to eat dirt. But at the same time, not only are they getting the stamina, but they're also learning the speed part of things. But outside of what it would be like with a 2-year-old training, a pinhook yearling to race a 2-year-old, this is, again, it's a different process. It's not as, again, it's not as intense as it would be, but it's still one where you have to develop these horses and, get that bone density.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So let's, that was wonderful. I enjoyed watching. I could watch those videos all night long. And folks, a reminder, this is the Wednesday work show on a Friday. And, I hope this April 16, 2021 is going in your favor. Of course, many of you probably have the weekend off. Big day tomorrow for Team My Racehorse. Joe, just touch briefly on the announcement with Monomoy Girl and Team My Racehorse. We're rolling. Let's roll.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to have a horse of her quality offered, and going into a race like this. When you're reading a lot of these things that are supposed to be in such a big race, it truly is like a Breeders' Cup race when you see two fillies go head-to-head this early in the year. Usually you see everyone picking their spots. I think it's great for racing, great for the game. One, Monomoy Girl even being in training this year. Everyone thought she wasn't going to be in training. To have her back this year is amazing. And to now go head-to-head with Swiss Skydiver, who's on the top of her game, it's going to be an awesome spot. And to have My Racehorse involved with Monomoy Girl, it's just incredible.
Yeah, it is. And just a reminder for those, that race tomorrow, TVG has had all the coverage. Monomoy Girl has her own spy cam. So she is set up. Kate Radar's did an exceptional job with TVG. Had an opportunity to see her grazing the grass, but the richest apple blossom ever, grade $1 million on the line tomorrow, post time, 6:09 Central. So be sure to set your watches. That would be 4 o'clock on the west and 7 o'clock here in the east. Swiss Skydiver, Monomoy Girl throwing it down. Monomoy Girl, of course, coming in with a $4.5 million bankroll and coming in sharp off of that Bayakoa victory. And she certainly doesn't need to take her track with her, Joe. I mean, she's won anywhere from Indiana Grand, Churchill, Keeneland, Belmont, Saratoga, Oaklawn. This will be her second start over the track. So we'll be watching, and we'll be excited, as is Donald Lewis. I'd like to give a shout-out to Ocala Louie, my good friend. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity to see you here at the OBS sale. And he, too, appreciates, the insight, and the nuances of these youngsters as they develop. Stephanie Anderson, Susan Ward, thank you for tuning into the work show. Nick Hines, along with Joe Moran. All right, and Melanie is our weekly viewer. I always appreciate Melanie coming on as well.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, let's jump to the West Coast, where all the Mandela action is, and we've got Popular Demand back on track, and I'm happy to say that the sire, Run Happy, starting to heat up.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's always nice to see. Obviously highlighted by Spendthrift Farms' recent winner, Following Sea at Oaklawn Park. Very impressive second time out. Ran second to Defunded. But here we're taking a look at Popular Demand. Back on track. He had a half-mile drill out of the gate, which we touched on a few weeks ago, I believe 2 weeks ago on the Wednesday work show. Had a little bit of soreness in his foot. So what Team Mandela is, they removed his shoes, put on glue-on shoes, will make it a little easier, remove that concussion that from hitting the ground. It kind of eases that up. He's responded well out of it. This was his work on April 11th, last Sunday, and he comes back tomorrow morning. He'll have another breeze tomorrow morning and hopefully continue on track. And before you know it, hopefully have that debut.
Yeah, and just a reminder that the Run Happy, with his youngsters. What's really interesting, Joe, when you look at first-time starters by Run Happy, he's 3%. His second-time starters, he's winning at 17%. And, as you'd mentioned following C, I believe that horse earned a huge number on the Ragazines. If he were to continue that path, I believe he ran a 5 3/4, which is graded stakes type number. I would say that Forbidden Sea will be certainly sitting on go. And then Champagne Salute. I love that name for Todd
sure.
This past weekend at Gulfstream Park. In fact, the same day that Popular Demand worked. So he will breeze tomorrow, correct?
Correct. Yep. 9 a.m. on the main track. So he'll likely go a half mile. And, it'll be up to Team Mandela based on this. It was not confirmed whether he'll go solo or in company. So that we'll figure out tomorrow. But that will be determined tomorrow. But I imagine you'll start seeing him progress. This first work back, as we saw, it was 39 seconds flat. Exercise rider Juan Espinoza, who I believe is now actually officially starting to ride again. He was riding at Golden Gate. He took some time to work for Team Mandela, and now he is back to riding. Great hand on a horse that he's been working for Team Mandela, worked a lot of our horses, but really just nice and easy on the horses and doing everything well. So this work was intentionally slow, and now you'll start seeing him progressively pick it back up week after week.
Right. I wanted to just mention, in reference to the glue-on shoes, it is basically what it sounds. So when you're putting a glue-on shoe on a horse's foot, there are no nails that are being placed in the hoof wall. What will happen, it's much like, and the ladies may know out there, and I know I do too, I've had manicures and pedicures and whatnot. Joe's probably too manly of a man to admit that fact that he's ever had a manicure. But that being said, so what happens is when you don't have enough on your nails, when you don't have enough white nail, you cut that down a bit further and it could be pretty tenderized. So essentially what they do is they put the glue on to alleviate pressure on the sole. The horse might be a bit platter-footed, maybe help them to get that sole up off of the ground. Remember, folks, Papa Mandela is a master, and many have felt that he has a foot fetish when it comes to horses. The Tin Man, if you go back and look at his career, he was essentially resurrected by our Hall of Fame trainer, Rich Mandela. So have faith in the process, and I believe that he'll be just fine. It was a nice gallop, essentially, for him. It was a glorified gallop. So hopefully with that workout tomorrow, it will get him back on the high road. So Popular Man, son of Run Happy, a 3-year-old out of that mare Midas Eyes, and it's nice to see that the sire Run Happy. Well, Mattress Mac, he's smiling somewhere. He's starting to get hot.
yeah, absolutely. Now he's to steal the Century, 10,000.
Steal the Century. I know.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. I trained for the man. He's one of a kind, and they truly broke the mold, and you'll never find another Mattress Mac. Lupe, hello. Big salute going out to you again. Nick Hines, Joe Moran. Yes, we are in the same hotel, but not in the same room. We are social distancing, although we hang out outdoors together at the sale. We're here in Ocala at the Ocala Breeder Sale. If you're in the area, I know Ocala Louis may come by. If you want to inspect a few horses together, we're happy to bring you along. You're just going to have to carry the water in our backpacks. I'm sure you're capable of doing that. Somebody's got to do it, Joe. I mean, Anyway, all right. Let's bring. Yeah, we're taking Hannah Bloom's job. By the way, she's not here, and I know she has a tear in her eye. And she's going to some fancy dinner tonight in Los Angeles. So, all right, let's get to the granddaddy for the show. Not that yes is time, and of course the babies and whatnot, but we've got a great estate coming up this weekend, Joe. Tizamagician, and if there were such a horse in a Mandela barn that deserved the great estate win, is it not Tizamagician and being ridden for the first time by leading rider Flavien Prat? How awesome is that?
Yeah, that never hurts to get Flavien Prat in the irons. I mean, he just seems to win about everything. So. No complaints on our end. Obviously, it's disappointing as Drayden Van Dyke left to Kentucky to lose him because of the relationship him and Tizamagician had. They really seem to just get along very well, and that's important. A jockey and rider's relationship is extremely important to the horse's success. But get Flavien Prat. His hands are great with a horse like Tizamagician. Team Mandela, as we've learned with him with the maturity process, he's not one that you want to fight with. You kind of want to let him do his thing, get into rhythm, and that's when he's most comfortable. This is his final drill, going 5/8 of a mile on April 11th, a minute and change, and he's doing it easy. We had the pleasure of having Gary Mandela on the show last week, where he really kind of touched on the plan where this horse is dead fit. He didn't need to do anything more than this, and this was kind of the plan of just keeping him happy, and they were ultra pleased here.
His last effort came on March 6th, and he's had a total of 4 workouts since that time. And, you know, there's often been the question, how do you prepare a horse for a 1.5-mile race? Well, you know, many would maybe look to the fact that you would breeze him that distance, but I can't recall the last time I saw a horse actually work a 1.5 miles. But I've seen Papa Mandela work horses a mile, and even recently in that. But for what it's worth, he's fit. He certainly looks a picture of health. He did have trouble in a Grade 1 Santa Anita handicap. So what was the thinking, knowing that you had the California coming up this Saturday, the Californian, to come back in the Tokyo City? What was the thought process here?
Well, you know, the 1.5 mile distance was always something that we talked about, and Team Mandela, Richard Mandela specifically, thought this horse would handle. He kind of has that pace where he can continue to keep that pace for a long distance. And as we've learned, we think he's best at his game when he's on the pace or close to the pace, and going that distance allows him to kind of get in that comfortable rhythm going long. We kind of had a feeling the race was going to come up with a short field. He ran well in the race last year. I know it was only in November, but this will be something where he can hopefully come right back in. He ran into a horse last year of, I believe, was it Cupid's Claw, if I'm saying the name correctly?
Yes.
Yes, where, you know, really proved to be a distance specialist. Went on to run on Breeders' Cup Day, though he didn't run great over the Keeneland track, had a little setback. Horse ran ultra impressive that day, where Tiz ran a great second. So, you know, coming right back in here, it looks to be a great spot where hopefully he can get that first graded stake win for him.
Yeah, looking at the field, you know, drawn post position number 3 of 5, and taking on a former My Racehorse from way back, it seems, Zestful, a horse that just he's a pesky competitor. Indeed, he is. But I think trip-wise, I don't think Tizamagician necessarily has to have the lead. Now, granted, 2 of his 3 victories were essentially done wire to wire. But in my mind, if Zestful wants to dictate tempo, I think we're happy to sit just off of him, because as we've all come to find out, Edwin Maldonado is a send rider. All right, Susan Ward, I can tell you of the viewers out there, and we just happen to be Facebook friends, she is truly one of the most passionate owners in My Racehorse. And, you know, again, Susan, we do certainly appreciate you. And, you know, I always find the curiosity when folks try to take a positive out there and steal your thunder. In other words, you know, it's a horse race. We all know that when you're out there, things can happen. You're not always going to win, and you just hope that a horse goes out and they compete to the highest level and they're able to come back sound and fight another day. And, you know, speaking of Team Mandela, I am just so, I guess it's more of a privilege than it is a pleasure, but just having the ability to work and interact with him, you, Gary, in the mornings at Santa Anita, and just talk horses with no frills and no sugarcoating. Because what you see with Richard Mandela is what you get. And obviously he's earned his way into that Hall of Fame. So hopefully Tizamagician will be another name on Papa Mandela's resume. A reminder, this weekend, folks, the Tokyo City Handicap, get tied on, and there will be a watch party. No, we will not be hosting. Joe and I will be inspecting the stars of tomorrow. So post time, Joe, is what, 5:12 Eastern, 2:12 left coast, is that right?
Yep, 2:12 Pacific time. We got race 3, post number 3, Flavien Prat. And to touch on going back real quick, as you made the comment of tripwise, I guess that's the great thing of having jockey Flavien Prat, where he'll be able to make the decision when that gate opens up, and he's got that magic touch. So wherever he puts us, we know he's going to put us in the right spot.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I'm excited. It's going to be a fun weekend. We've got the Grade 1 Apple Blossom Handicap, Monomoy Girl, and again, a major big-time salute going out to our friends over at Spendthrift, you know, making the ultimate dream become a reality. I mean, you've got a champion race mare coming back. It is certainly for the early part of the year, this is the big heavyweight match. You've got Monomoy Girls, Swiss Skydiver. A reminder, 6:09 Central, 7:09 here on the left coast. And for those are the right coast, the left coast in the Pacific, 4:09. And you can catch all of the action on TVG. Be sure to get tuned in, and we'll have that watch party for you. And a big thank you to our producer and our very good friend, Hannah Bloom, or Hannah Boom, as I like to call her. Joe, been a great show. I guess I'll see you in the morning, my friend.
Yeah, not too far, so I'm sure I'll see you in a few hours, and we'll get back to work in the morning.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for today's Wednesday/Friday work show on April 16, 2021. Thanks for tuning in, and be sure in the future, send those questions in. We appreciate your support, and of course, without you, there is no us. Enjoy your weekend. We hope to see you in the winner's circle. Good night, everybody.